Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. At the beginning of the year, we're here, and I'm gonna use a pun. I'm gonna use a football pun. Game on, game on. You have an entire year ahead. Call it a clean slate. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to succeed? Are you going to reach a lot of those goals, or you just kind of move it forward and see what happens? Got to be intentional if you want to win the game. And who doesn't? And so many of us kind of stuck in our lives and know that there is more out there for us. This gentleman has designed just an amazing coaching program. And I'm using the football puns, but it's kind of spawned from that, called the OpenPlaybook. And we're going to take a look at coaching among different types of organizations. And Larry Dodd joins us here on the program. How are you doing today?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing great. It's fantastic to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So we talked last time about some of the challenges that we have, failure rates when somebody isn't intentional in moving the game forward, so to speak. Can we look at the process of coaching using the OpenPlaybook and different types of individuals or organizations?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, last week we talked about OpenPlaybook and what each of the playbooks was, and just a quick recap is playbook number one is a playbook we're given. Those are those inherent skills and talents that we really want to turn into strength, but it's something that's the fabric of who we are. That's playbook number one. The shame about playbook number one is too often people never really look at that. So we use this as a tool to look at what those strengths and talents are for you. Excuse me. Playbook number two are the playbooks we develop. And it's actually any number of playbooks across your entire world, right? So we're going to talk today a little bit about business, but it's about relationships. Anywhere that people connect, we want to think about how we're developing those playbooks. And it happens in family, it happens in sports, it happens in artistic endeavors, and it happens in business. And when it happens in business and we do it right, we have a much better chance to win. Finally, playbook number three is the playbook that you give away. So many of us think that success is about holding stuff in. And what I've found and what I believe and the mentors that I've had have thought just the opposite. It's about sharing that playbook, sharing it strategically with people that you're building, because nobody gets it right all the time. So it's easy to share stuff we get right. It's a lot harder sometimes to share those human things about where we might have done something different or how we would have approached something different. So we bring all of that into play, and we think that makes a much more effective leader. It builds engagement, and at the end of the day, builds stronger teams and stronger organizations because of it.
Let's look at the playbooks moving in backward order. So starting at the number three playbook, what you give away. Are we also saying that when you give of yourself, you get back tenfold? It's often been, and you should be doing, all of those things, expecting something to come back. But the same thing when you mentor somebody, you're getting something from it as well, and you move yourself forward. You're helping somebody else. Is that part of the concept that we're talking about with that playbook?
That's a cornerstone of the concept, and I would argue that tenfold is a minimal compared to what we can do. So think about if somebody travels in an organization, right, or travels through their career or travels through their life. When we start, we get measured about what we do, about what we produce, about what we learn, about those tangible outcomes. But as we go further in an organization or further in a family, all of a sudden we introduce things like judgment and experience and seasoning, right? That's where the value is. And that value is greater than tenfold exponentially by a huge amount, not by a little, by a huge amount. But too often we kind of hold that stuff in, right? But when you put it out there and you're strategically building somebody, you build trust, you build a person's confidence, you let them know that we didn't get everything right. In fact, there's some things we got wrong, and what made it right is how we responded to that. So yes, I would say that is the cornerstone.
And I completely agree with you. So many of us, when we attain some success, it's like, Um, circle around the wagons. Let's hide
Right,
inside. Don't give up the secret sauce. Let's just
right,
keep moving it forward. And we're here. We attain this. Let's just keep succeeding and just don't touch anything. Don't let anybody know.
right.
But it's interesting when you look at those individuals. You see them on LinkedIn, maybe on Facebook, IG, and they're always giving. They're always, whether they're doing charity work, whether they're giving ideas out there, whatever it is. We always look at them in a positive light, don't we?
Yeah, I think that we do. I think, and in the context too of building, so say you're building a specific player on a specific team, right? Or you're thinking about something like succession or how you're growing somebody, they want to grow. You are giving, but so are they. And part of our agreement, part of our clean agreement is that as we spend and invest that time in that part of uniquely who we are, we want that back.
Hmm.
And that takes trust.
What do you say to somebody who says, "Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to mentor somebody. I don't have the time, man. I'm like, there's just no time in my life. I'd love to do it. I know the benefits. I just can't." What do you say to people that say that?
I guess my argument would be if you want to grow and you really want to be a person with strong influence, then you can't not have the time.
Hmm.
If you want to get something done, something important done, you ask a busy person. There's a reason for that. Is that when we have so much that we're doing, and this is a coaching application, we have so much that we're doing and we don't have time to grow somebody else, then we need to take a look at that guy in the mirror, that man or woman in the mirror, and say, am I doing the right things? I mean, that's where it starts. Am I doing the right things? Am I focused on the right things? And in order for me to move and grow where I want to like to go, I have to use what I've learned to grow somebody else. And so you start
Hmm.
to think about a whole culture. It's a big commitment, right? So a lot of times we look at a concept like this or we read a book and we say, okay, I've read the book, we're ready to go. It should be done. And what I would say is you're just beginning.
Hmm. I I would say, and I'm not saying this because we're together, but if somebody is walking around saying, "I don't have time," it's time to hire a coach because you're not managing your time maybe the most effective way. You don't have the right priorities at that point. Let's go back to the first playbook, the assets that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Larry, do you feel that many of us don't realize what we have, the good stuff in us, the skills? Maybe we're spiritual. We don't even realize how spiritual we are, and that can propel us even further, but we don't see it. Do you find a lot of people have a lot going on, but they are not really aware of it?
Yeah, I think it's a tragic loss for everybody.
Mm.
And that um, what was it Thoreau said, most people lead lives of quiet desperation. We're taught to do that. We're taught to strive for those things that are outside of us first. Those are our signs of success. And all of those things are really good, but they have a price too. And if we haven't looked inside and spent time developing those strengths that we were given to build and develop, then there's going to be a tension. And there's going to be a tension between who we are, and there's going to be a tension between what we do. And that beats people down and it makes them worry. And quite frankly, it's a tragic loss of talent.
So I played music on the radio, literally paid professionally since I was a kid. Not even
Mm-hmm.
kidding. I didn't even have a driver's license. I had a radio job. Things that come to me in music. You said two words that really resonated: quiet desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And the song that comes to mind, Hanging On in Quiet Desperation, is The English Way. Do you know what song that is?
I don't know that song,
You
but I
will, you will when I
appreciate the
tell you.
lyric.
You will
Yeah.
when I tell you. Pink Floyd and Time. And
Yep.
that song is all about 10 years have come and gone. And
Yep.
you realize you don't have a lot of time left because time just went by and you were hanging on in part of the song, quiet desperation.
Yeah.
So when you use those two words, how do you define them, Larry?
Quiet desperation. When I think about that, is I think about um, not looking, being happy, not looking at what's really important, thinking that if you are so caught up in the noise that you're chasing these shiny rocks out there, whatever it might be. For me, it was a title. For me, it was a profession. For me, it was money. For me, whatever. Um, you're building your whole foundation on sand, right? You're building on something that's going to shift. And it's that quiet desperation of everybody puts forth an image of, yeah, I love what I'm doing. I'm really good at doing it. Yeah, look at all these things I have. But in their quiet moments, in their honest moments, um, it's really can be quite sad.
Mm. Especially because we have this idyllic image, the big house,
Mm-hmm.
the two cats, the dog, the two cars, the white fence, all of that. Do you find either in your own life or working with people that they thought that those things, that sports car, all of that, they thought it was all of that, and at one point realized this is meaningless. This is what I put it all, this is what society wanted me to focus on. I'm empty, man. There's nothing going on here. And then
Yeah,
they start looking from something um, that means something. Do you hear that from quite a few people?
I do. I do. It takes a while to build a relationship of trust because we all guard that part, right? But part of the ability to build that trust is I live that. That's the story of my life,
Same.
right? Yeah, I worked 32 hours a week in the meat business when I was going to school, carried 12 units and got straight A's and something I really didn't like to do. But I wanted to build a life for my family, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the what we my perspective of learning that is that I built a life of quiet desperation because I was chasing what everybody else thought was valuable.
Yep.
And I chased pretty hard, man. I was controller of a major league baseball team. I was CFO of a biggest division of a public company, home builder. Then
Mm.
went to a private home builder. CFO did the same thing. And yeah, I found my element in driving change. Yeah, I found that. But it came at the price of doing the tangible things that for me, I had to fight so hard to be good at. It makes you weary, doesn't it?
Mm. Because it wasn't really you.
Yeah, quite honestly. You don't think about the accounting profession as people who thrive on change and thrive on building um, people in kind of a more holistic way. And there's nothing wrong with that because you need those people. All my teams were great accountants because I knew that I needed them. And and it's a powerful profession that I have nothing but love and respect for. It's just that there was a part of me, man, it was dying inside. And I expressed it by going to places where there was change. I said, oh, I can build that person. I heard a whisper there. And that's how change happens, right? That's why trust is so important. It's because people don't just put it out there. It's a whisper. And it's a whisper if you're not listening or if people don't trust you, you're just going to pass in the night. Quiet desperation.
Mm. I'm piloted by this mantra in the last 3 years, and I'm gonna share it. I don't know if I have, but it includes the word trust. So and I didn't write this. It could have been Bob Marley, it could have been Shakespeare. I'm not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, love everyone, and you can walk into a Starbucks and thank the barista. Thank you. The coffee's really good. Well, I don't know where you did,
Yeah.
but and yeah, your hair looks great today, by the way. You make somebody's day. Love everyone. Trust few. Always do the right thing for all, as in the greater good. We can always say, well, I did the right thing for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, but for all. I want to go back to number two, trust few. That was kind of a wake up call for me. Um, what's your definition of trust? Some say trust is earned. How do you describe it?
Well, I do think I have to earn people's trust, right, in my environment. But when I think about change and growth and really looking at your playbook and thinking about who the fabric of that person is that looks back at you in the mirror, I think we have two major components to think about. The first one you hit it right perfectly is love. right? But not in the way that we think of romantic love, or not in the way that we think of, this very, because sometimes love is being tough. Sometimes love is helping a person hear what they have to hear in a very compassionate and loving way. And it's built on that foundation of love, right?
Is that known as tough love, essentially?
Sometimes it has
Yeah.
been in my world when it's come back the other way. I've had a number of mentors who have come back, and they believe me, I was a
Mm,
tough kid
mm,
and I got a lot of tough love. But if they didn't care about you, you get quiet desperation, wouldn't you? You
mm.
get quiet silence. So the other component, and this is the enemy, right? This is the enemy. And if we can defeat the enemy, we can get trust. And the enemy is fear. If we can defeat fear, not that we're going to get it perfect, but that these two people connect, that we have a connection, and we're all trying to do what we can do best and move in the right direction with the world we live in, right? Then that helps defeat fear and starts to allow us to lean into things that really make us powerful. And they
Fear,
aren't the cars.
fear is the enemy.
Fear is the enemy. 100%.
What are the other enemies? Or is it fear? That's pretty much it.
I think the biggest factor to overcome is fear.
Mm.
And if you can overcome fear and you can move directionally towards somebody who realizes that we're trying to move in and work in a environment of love, as defined before, not gushy, mushy, or any of that other stuff, but really human to human, we're all trying to make each other better, and we have clean agreements and a good relationship, then to me, those are the parameters we're moving within. If we move too far towards fear, our behavior becomes um, defensive, unpredictable. Um, the walls go up and nothing
Mm.
happens. And we start looking at the outside things, right? I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I'm saying when we consider what we have inside and we start to leverage that, the outside things follow a lot more easily, and you have a lot more fun doing it.
I'm putting the fear thing in context in my mind, and I have to go with you, Larry.
Yeah,
It's everything. Think
yeah,
about everything that's holding us back. Think of everything
hmm,
in your life, where you're uneasy. There's always a connection to fear. And I've heard this come around many times, but they say that the survey, research, whatever is done every few years, and it's always in the 90% area, 93% of the things that we worry about never take place. You're wasting your energy, you're wasting your time
yeah,
marinating on all the stuff. And it's only like 8%, roughly
yeah.
actually comes to reality.
That's true. And we worry about things that never happen. Would you like a story on how to overcome fear?
I am listening very
That,
clearly and closely.
Steve, this is an everyday story. When I was young in my career, I was doing some consulting. I was working consulting, and I would have a long commute, and I was consulting in San Francisco. So in commute traffic in San Francisco, and pick your city, LA, Chicago, New York, whatever, San Francisco was horrible. So the way that I would get around a commute is I would go in at 4:30 in the morning. I just get up out of bed. I'd take my running stuff off. I go. I go to a gym, and I go run along the water. Now, San Francisco at 5:30 in the morning is pretty dark, right? It isn't really moving yet. There's not a lot happening, but there's some runners out there just like me. Um, so I'm running one day, and you can probably imagine I like to greet people, and I get to see the same people. And there's this old man walking the other way, and he's all bundled up and stressed out, and I can see him from a long way away. And I'm thinking, wow, that guy is looks like he's carrying the weight of the world. And so as I run by him, I said, "Good morning," right? Not a word. He didn't even look at me. And off I went. And so I had a decision. I decided, well, I'm probably going to see this guy again. Am I happy with that response? Should he be happy with it?
Hmm.
And so day after day goes on, and I see this guy every single day. And good morning, and nothing. And gradually, I can see from a distance, he starts to see me coming, and his body changes just a little bit. just a little bit. It's that whisper, man. It's that whisper. So he gets a good morning. And by the end of a couple months, when I'd finished that engagement, Steve, that guy was telling me good morning because he trusted me. Not for anything I could give him, not for anything I was taken from him. It's because that humanity touched and that fear was removed. Now, the real powerful thing, and you talked about the exponential thing, what happened when we parted? How did his world change, and how did he change somebody else? Because of the way he changed the way he thought about things. That's way more than 10 times possibility.
It took a lot of time for that change to take place.
Couple months.
And goes back to what you said. Trust is earned.
Trust is earned.
It took every single day of you passing him, but you didn't give up.
I wasn't going to give up.
Why?
Well, sometimes part of the magic of it all is not knowing why. It's just my gut told me, my heart
there you
told
go.
me.
That's that. Thank you for saying that. I was waiting. If I was waiting for something here because you weren't just doing it. I'm going to get him to say good morning. Your intuition was telling you he needs it.
Yeah.
And even though he didn't express it, he needed it.
Yeah. And those are the whispers of talent. They're the whispers of that we don't share with one another because we're so wrapped up in this noise. Some of it being outside noise, right? Of all the acquisitions we make, how much money we're making, all that stuff. Some of it being the fear inside that says, am I good enough? Am I safe? Am I the right person? Do I really feel this way? Should I feel that way? And go on and on and on and on and on and on, right? And but when you get in the habit of doing that with people, your posture changes. The way you think about things change. Now, home building is a tough business, very tough. Professional sports is a tough business. I was bringing change in both of those worlds. So this is not squishy, and it's not fluffy, and it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Why is it worth it?
Well, when you change the way people look at themselves, or you allow them to see what's really there and have a belief that you're building them, you're building their best interest, and at the same time building a culture in an organization, not from HR, but from an operating manager to a person that works for them in a practical sense, you start to change the course of everything. Rather than having people pull back and be afraid, you're getting people to fully engage. Do we always get it right? No, but so much of this is about knowing how to approach things when we get it wrong. Isn't that what leadership's really about a lot of the time?
I think it also goes back to playbook number one. In your job, you're pulling out all those wonderful things in the rest of us that we might not even see. We're not even using those skills, whatever they are, or we're not using them the way our purpose, the way we were designed. And it sounds like this is your purpose. There's no doubt about it.
I hope so. Yeah, I think so.
No, it's abundantly clear. But to get there, you had to go through other situations. But we have to go through many things to get where we need to go. And that was part of it.
Yeah. I mean, so let's talk about that though for a second. In order to be a good accountant, I had to work harder than everybody else, right? I was in a big 8 accounting firm. It's the biggest and the best in the world, right? Which I was not. But I had to work harder just to keep up. And so during the time I was doing that, it wasn't wasted time because I can take that understanding and that fight and that pain and that angst.
Yep.
And I can build a bridge to somebody else, but I can also understand where they start from and do very naturally. And now I have something to offer them. And at the same time, I have a journey that allows me to help companies and people and companies.
I love the fact that the third playbook is giving up giving up your play.
Yeah.
I don't think you hear many coaches of any level, whether it's executive, individual, say that is part of the playbook. Larry, fascinating talking with you today. I know we got a little deep, but I think there was a reason that we needed to.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. How do we find you?
My website is open-playbook.com. And we have some good stuff there. It tells you a little bit more concretely about what we do, but also the Gmail is openplaybookllc@gmail.com. And be happy to talk to you. Love to talk to people about this. This is what I love to do, and love to hear from you.
Yeah, love having you on here today. Really inspirational and insightful, and learned a lot, and I appreciate that.
Awesome. Me too, Steve. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, online radio box, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.